Hello everyone and welcome to the FIDE World Blitz Championship 2024. This is the final between Magnus Carlsen and Jan Nepomniachtchi. The score so far is 2-1 for the Norwegian, so Nepo needs a win with the black pieces in order to force tie breaks. And the game kicks off with the French defense in the classical variation. Magnus goes for knight c2, e2, followed by c3 in order to reinforce the center, and then he goes a3. An idea that we saw in the World Championship between Gukesh and Diliren. White's idea is to delay f4, because in many cases you want to bring this knight to f4 in order to create some troubles along the king side. So Nepo fixed the structure on the queen side with a4, and then Magnus pushes on the king side with h4. A very useful move. In many cases, you are supporting, the g5 square, and then you can also push the pawn to h5 and h6 in certain variations. In a game that these guys played in the Champion Chess Tour some weeks ago, Nepo tried queen a5, so probably he's going to try something different, and then he goes for knight to b6, knight to f4 by Magnus, and then knight to a5, trying to play knight b3, winning the bishop pair, so that's why Magnus plays the prophylactic move, rook to b1. Now after knight b3, you can actually develop the bishop to e3, bishop d7, and then bishop d3 from Magnus Carlsen. The bishop on d3 is a great piece, right? Attacking on h7. We cannot say the same about the d7 bishop, the worst piece in a French structure. h6 from Nepo, prophylactic move, and Magnus completes development with short castle. Then Nepo plays queen to c7, very flexible move. Maybe you want to go for long castling in these kind of positions, right? Because, going for short castle looks extremely dangerous. Rook e1 from Magnus Carlsen, improving the situation of that rook, and then knight b to c4. Probably Nepo wants to play bishop e5 and then dream about trading those light square bishops. Then Magnus goes for knight to h5. Nice move, paralyzing Black's play on the king side. Why? Because you cannot develop the f8 bishop. Since g7 hangs, you cannot play g6 naturally, because that knight can jump to f6, and it's going to be extremely painful for Black. So, how to proceed with the black pieces here? Nepo plays b5. Well, a mistake according to the engines. Now Magnus takes on c5, looking for better pastures for the knight, looking for better food. For that knight on f3, you get the d4 square available. Now after queen c5, bishop c5 was not possible because of the pawn on g7. Now, actually, white could be threatening to play bishop c2, followed by knight b5, and then bishop a4. So that's why Nepo needs to move that bishop away. That bishop is moving more than a conspiracy theorist connecting dots. Now Magnus is maybe thinking about going bishop to c2 in order to force b5 and then bury that light square bishop for good. But instead he goes for queen to g4, putting some pressure against g7, but Nepo ignores it by going for long castling. Taking on g7 looks extremely risky because of rook g8. That's why Magnus plays queen to f4, putting pressure against f7. Now you have two ways to protect that pawn, either by go bishop to 8 or queen e7, but I just love this move, because you are not only protecting that pawn on f7, you are also supporting a possible g5 break. Magnus, that's the same on the queen side. b3 tries to open some files. He wants to put pressure against that lonely, sad b7 pawn. But suddenly bishop c6 comes, and that bishop was a terrible piece. But now it has dreams, it has hopes, it's like my boss, stuck in the same place all day, but somehow takes all the credit at the end. Not talking about my Chess.com boss, of course, guys. What did I just say, guys? I don't want to get fired from my job. Please help me, guys. So how to proceed here with the white pieces? It's not easy. You might think about taking on c4 and then grabbing an extra pawn, but I think it's not a good idea, because you're just losing the bishop pair, and then more important, you're opening the diagonal for the c6 monster. So how to proceed? Maybe to develop the last minor piece, bishop to e3, and then you can think about going to d4 and then block that bishop on c6. So remember, this is just 3+2, so not much time left. Bishop e3 by Magnus Carlsen. Now probably Nepo reacts on the king side, creating some chaos. This is getting very messy, very Lionel Messi. Queen to d4. You couldn't take actually twice on g5 because that knight on h5 was actually hanging. So queen to d4. I really love this move because queen a7 is in the air, gh4. Now Nepo opens the g file in order to bring a rook to g8. So that's why Magnus plays once again prophylactic chess, knight to f6, covering the g8 squares. So Nepo develops the last minor piece, bishop to g7. One idea could be to trade on f6 in order to bring a rook to g8 in the future. So how to put more pressure here against the black king? Maybe doubling rooks on the b file makes a lot of sense. Maybe queen a7 in order, well, to give some checks there on a8, but I think it's nothing special since, well, I can always try to go to c7 with the king, or even black can play queen c7 in order to defend that king with a queen on b8. Magnus doubles rook on the b file. More pressure against b7, a pawn which is, once again, very well protected at this moment. So how to proceed here with the black pieces? Maybe bishop f6, ef6, and then queen c7, and then the g8 square is going to be available for the black rooks. And there we go, ef6, queen c7. Now, this is a very important moment. Bishop f4 is always in the air, but then e5 is extremely chaotic. So how to proceed? Queen a7. There you go. You know, 3 pieces putting pressure against b7. The 2 rooks and the queen. But black has 3 pieces protecting this b7. The bishop, the queen, and the king. So that's why rook g8 is played. Now, careful, Magnus, because g2 is under tremendous pressure. So d4 ideas, and suddenly the rook and the c6 monster are coordinating extremely well. Nobody wanted to pick the large square bishop to play soccer at school. He couldn't get a date with a girl or a guy from Mordor's historic district, but now he's the David Beckham of chess. Bishop f4. Wow, what is this? The engine is saying that this is a big mistake from Magnus Carlsen. Because after queen f4, rook b7, I don't understand. It looks like Magnus is winning. Why? Because queen a8 is coming with checkmate. So now only checks are available for Nepo. And if you are lucky, you will give checkmate. Otherwise, Magnus is going to win the game. So it looks to me that rook g2 is the only move now. King takes e2, but then rook g8 check, king f1, knight d2, king e2. And I don't see a finish there for black. Rook g2, king g2. Now you need to give another check, otherwise it's just a checkmate. You can have a take on b7 because of queen b7 checkmate. So what are you going to do? d4 is an idea, but then after king f1, I don't see how to finish. Rook g8, king f1 again, queen g4. Then you got king f1 once again. That tasty square is saving white. Wow, 93. Fantastic move from Nepomniachtchi. Black's idea is, if you take on e3, then you will never have this f1 square for your king. Now after rook g8, you will have to go to the h file, and then the queen is going to finish the job. Or even the bishop on c6 after a fantastic d4. What a game by Nepomniachtchi. Incredible level of play. One of the most enjoyable battles of this entire World Championship. It's been a pleasure, and this was Grandmaster Pepe Cuenca for Chess.com. Take care.